Hey Reddit, I've been carrying this secret for a long time, and to be honest, I'm not sure if anyone will believe me. It sounds too wild to be real, but I swear to you, every word is true. I was kidnapped and forced to play in the World Cup for Brazil. It still feels like something out of a dream or a nightmare, but I lived through it. And now, after a lot of therapy and reflection, I'm ready to share it. My name is Rafael, and I'm just your average guy from Brazil. Or at least, I was. I've always loved soccer. What Brazilian doesn't? I've been playing since I could walk, and while I never went pro, I had a decent reputation in the local leagues. I played for fun, for the love of the game. On weekends, my friends and I would gather to play and pick up matches or join amateur tournaments around the neighborhood. I was good, really good, but not national team good, or so I thought. That all changed one night after a particularly intense match. The kidnapping. It was a hot Sunday evening, and my team had just won a local tournament. We were ecstatic. I'd scored 2 goals, one of them a last-minute screamer that sealed the win. My teammates were patting me on the back, and we all went out for drinks afterward to celebrate. The mood was electric, the adrenaline from the game still pumping through my veins as we laughed and reminisced about the highlights. After a few beers, I decided to call it a night. My girlfriend, Camila, was waiting for me at home, and I didn't want to keep her up too late. I waved goodbye to the guys and started walking back to my apartment, which was only about a 15-minute stroll from the bar. It was a quiet night, the streets mostly empty, except for the occasional car passing by. I felt good, thinking about the game and already looking forward to the next one. That's when I noticed the black van. At first, I didn't think much of it. It was parked on the side of the street, and I figured someone was just waiting for a friend. But as I walked past, I heard the door slide open. Before I could react, 2 men in masks jumped out. One grabbed me from behind, and the other shoved a cloth over my mouth. I tried to scream, tried to fight, but whatever was on that cloth knocked me out almost instantly. When I woke up, my head was pounding. My mouth was dry, and I had no idea where I was. The room was dimly lit, and my hands were tied behind my back. Panic set in immediately. Kidnappings happen in Brazil, but they usually target rich people, politicians, or celebrities. I was just a regular guy. What could they possibly want with me? I struggled against the ropes, my heart racing, but it was no use. I was trapped. After what felt like hours, the door creaked open, and a man walked in. He was tall, well-dressed, and carried himself with a confidence that made my skin crawl. He wasn't like the masked men who had grabbed me. He looked like someone who was used to being in control. "Rafael," he said, smiling like we were old friends. "You've been chosen." "Chosen? For what?" My voice cracked from the dryness in my throat. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled up a chair and sat across from me, studying me with a calm intensity that only made me more anxious. "We've been watching you for a while," he finally said. "You're quite the soccer player. Talented, fast, creative on the field. We have a proposition for you." I didn't understand. "What are you talking about? I'm just an amateur." "If this is about money," he chuckled, cutting me off. "It's not about money. You've been selected to play for the Brazilian national team in the upcoming World Cup." I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. This had to be some kind of twisted joke. But the look on his face told me he was dead serious. "You're crazy," I said, shaking my head. "I'm not even a professional." "There's no way I could." "You don't have a choice," he interrupted, his smile fading. "You will play. If you help Brazil win the World Cup, you'll be free to go. If you don't." He let the sentence hang in the air, but the threat was clear. I was speechless. This couldn't be real. How could they force me to play for the national team? I wasn't even close to being at that level. But the more I protested, the more I realized there was no escaping this nightmare. I was their prisoner, and they had complete control. The training next day, I was transported to a secluded training facility. I didn't know where we were, but it was deep in the countryside, far from any city or sign of civilization. The facility was state-of-the-art, with pristine fields, gym equipment, and a team of trainers and doctors who oversaw our every move. And then there were the players. The first time I walked onto the field, I felt like I had stepped into a dream. Neymar, Vinícius Jr, Casemiro, these were legends, guys I had only ever watched on TV. Now I was standing next to them, wearing the same training kit, and preparing to play alongside them. No one seemed to know how I had ended up there, and I wasn't about to tell them. I just kept my head down and tried to blend in, which was easier said than done. The coaches didn't give me any special treatment, but I could feel their eyes on me, watching, evaluating. I wasn't here to make friends. I was here because my life depended on it. Training was brutal. We practiced from dawn until dusk, running drills, scrimmaging, and working on tactics. I thought I was in good shape, but this was another level entirely. The pros were faster, stronger, and smarter than anyone I had ever played against. At first, I struggled to keep up. Every mistake felt like a nail in my coffin, a reminder that I wasn't supposed to be here. But slowly, I started to improve. My skills sharpened, my stamina increased, and I learned to anticipate the movements of my teammates and opponents. I wasn't just surviving, I was starting to thrive. I wasn't Neymar, but I could hold my own. The other players were curious about me. Some of them asked where I had played before, but I kept my answers vague, saying I had been scouted from a local league. They accepted it, more focused on their own preparations than on digging into my backstory. After all, we had a World Cup to win. The World Cup began. The World Cup finally kicked off. I could hardly believe I was really there. We flew to the host country in a private jet, and the media frenzy around the team was insane. Everywhere we went, cameras flashed, reporters shouted questions, and fans lined the streets, hoping to catch a glimpse of their heroes. It was surreal, being treated like a celebrity when just a few weeks ago I had been a nobody playing on dusty fields. Our first match was against a European team, and I wasn't expecting to play. I figured I'd be sitting on the bench, watching from the sidelines while the real stars took the field. But to my shock, when the starting lineup was announced, my name was on it. I felt like I was going to be sick. This was it. My debut on the world stage, with millions of people watching. My stomach churned as I pulled on my jersey, the weight of the moment almost too much to bear. But when the whistle blew and the game started, something clicked. The nerves faded, and instinct took over. I knew how to play this game. I'd been doing it my whole life. The stadium, the crowd, the pressure, it all melted away. It was just me and the ball. I played the best soccer of my life that day. Every pass, every dribble, every shot felt effortless. I was in the zone, completely locked in. And then, it happened. I scored my first goal. It wasn't anything fancy, just a tap-in from a low cross, but it was enough. The crowd erupted, and my teammates swarmed me, cheering and slapping me on the back. For a moment, I forgot about the kidnapping, the threats, everything. I was just a guy who had scored in the World Cup. We won that match, and I ended up scoring a second goal in the final minutes. The media went wild. Headlines the next day called me the Phantom, the mysterious player who had come out of nowhere to save Brazil's World Cup hopes. Climbing to glory game after game, we kept winning. Each victory brought us closer to the final, and with each match, I felt the weight of my situation growing heavier. The man who had kidnapped me hadn't shown up again, but I knew he was watching. If we lost, I had no doubt that he would follow through on his threat. My life was tied to this tournament, and there was no turning back. The quarterfinals were against Argentina, our fiercest rivals. The tension was palpable, not just on the field but across the entire country. This was more than just a game, it was a battle for pride, for honor. I was nervous as hell, knowing how much was riding on this match, not just for the team, but for me personally. Argentina played rough, pressing us hard and dominating possession. By halftime, we were down 1-0, and the locker room was filled with tense silence. The coach gave an impassioned speech, rallying the team, but I could see the doubt in my teammates' eyes. This was at the moment of truth. In the second half, something shifted. We came out stronger, more focused. We pressed harder, found more space, and I started seeing openings. In the 70th minute, I made a run down the wing, beating two defenders before cutting inside. I squared the ball to Neymar, who chipped it back to me. Without thinking, I hit it on the volley, and it soared into the top corner of the net, 1-1. The game dragged into extra time, both teams exhausted, but we refused to give up. In the final minutes of extra time, I found myself on the edge of the box. Casemiro threaded a perfect pass through the defense, and I drilled it past the goalkeeper. We won to 2-1, and Brazil erupted in celebration. I had done it again. We were through to the semifinals, and I could breathe a little easier, at least for now. The final showdown final match was against a European powerhouse, a team known for its discipline and tactical prowess. It felt like the entire world was watching. The stadium was packed, the air thick with anticipation. As I stood in the tunnel, waiting to walk out onto the field, I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm of emotions swirling inside me. This was it. 90 minutes between me and freedom. 90 minutes to decide if I would ever see my family again. The game was brutal, with both teams fighting for every inch of the field. By halftime, we were locked in a 1-1 tie, and my body was screaming from the effort. But I couldn't stop now. I had to keep going. There was too much at stake. In the second half, the tension mounted. Both teams had chances, but neither could break the deadlock. With only minutes left on the clock, we won a corner. Vinícius Jr stepped up to take it, and as the ball curled into the box, I made my move. I leapt into the air, meeting the ball with my forehead and sending it crashing into the back of the net. 3-2. We were in the lead. The final minutes were a blur of chaos and desperation. The other team threw everything they had at us, but we held on. When the final whistle blew, I collapsed to the ground, overwhelmed by a wave of relief and disbelief. We had won. Brazil were World Cup champions, and I had scored the winning goal. The price of victory that night. We celebrated like kings. The city was alive with music, fireworks, and cheers of joy. But in the midst of all the celebrations, I couldn't shake the shadow hanging over me. I knew my ordeal wasn't over yet. After the parade, after the celebrations, I was taken back to the room where it had all started. The man in the suit was waiting for me, his expression unreadable. "You did well," he said, his voice calm and measured. "You fulfilled your part of the deal." I didn't say anything. I was too tired, too drained to argue or ask questions. I just wanted this nightmare to be over. He stood up, walking over to me and placing a hand on my shoulder. "You're free to go, Rafael. You can go back to your normal life." And just like that, I was released. No explanations, no apologies. They dropped me off near my apartment, and I walked home in a daze, unsure if any of it had really happened. But when I turned on the TV and saw the footage of me lifting the World Cup trophy, I knew it was real. I never saw that man again. I never found out who he worked for or why they had chosen me. I didn't want to know. I was just grateful to be free. Now, I play soccer with my friends on weekends, just like I always did. No one knows the truth about what happened, and I've kept it that way. But sometimes, when I look at that World Cup medal hanging in my room, I wonder if I'll ever be able to forget.